The ball comes down on the Marseille sky from 60 yards away. Frank de Boer has launched it from inside his own half, and Dennis Bergkamp is already sprinting into the Argentine penalty area. 89th minute, World Cup quarterfinal. One touch to kill it dead. One touch to send Roberto Ayala the wrong way. One touch to lift it past the goalkeeper. 3 touches, 1 turn. The greatest goal in the history of the Dutch national team. 4 years later, Dennis Bergkamp watched the next World Cup on television. He was 31 years old. He was still at his peak. He was not injured. He was not dropped. He had simply walked away from his country because the tournament was in Japan and Dennis Bergkamp could not get there. To understand why one of the best footballers of his generation gave up his country, you have to understand something strange about the way he played. Bergkamp was not a player of explosions. He was a player of millimeters. The angle of the first touch, the weight of a pass nobody else had seen, the half second of stillness before everything moved at once. His genius was control. Total, absolute control. Now, put a man like that inside a metal tube at 35,000 feet. No steering wheel, no brakes, no way out. Ask a man whose whole art was the conquering of chaos to sit still inside it for 10 hours. This is not a story about a footballer who was scared of flying. This is a story about a man whose greatest strength became the thing that caged him. It starts before he ever refused to board a plane. On the 7th of June, 1989, Suriname Airways Flight 764 was approaching Paramaribo. 9 crew, 178 passengers. Among them, a team of footballers of Surinamese descent who played their football in Holland, flying out for a charity tournament. The plane tried to land using the wrong navigation signal. The pilots ignored the alarms. The aircraft clipped the trees at the edge of the runway and broke apart. 176 people were killed. 2 of them were Dennis Bergkamp's Ajax teammates. Lloyd Dosberg, a goalkeeper, 29 years old. Virgil Jomankan, a youth player, 18. Bergkamp had wanted to be on that flight. Ajax refused him permission. He never spoke much about that day. But something settled into him afterward and it did not leave. Not panic, not yet, just a wait. He kept flying. For 5 more years, he boarded every plane he was told to board. But there's a kind of fear that does not arrive. It accumulates. In 1993, Bergkamp signed for Inter Milan. Serie A was the best league in the world, and the move made him one of the most expensive footballers alive. It also put him on a plane every other week. Inter traveled Italy in small propeller aircraft, short hops between cities, bouncing through alpine turbulence the whole way. Bergkamp described those flights years later. Cramped cabins, constant shaking, nothing but white cloud outside the window for an hour at a time. You just sat there shaking the entire trip, he wrote. It was hell. 2 seasons at Inter, 2 seasons of those planes. Somewhere in there, the weight became something with a grip. The man who could read a defender's hips before the defender had moved, who knew where the ball would land before it was struck, sat in those cabins with no idea when the shaking would stop. He arrived at the 1994 World Cup already carrying something broken. This channel's gonna tell a lot of these stories. The ones that sound like trivia until you see the whole shape of them. Subscribe if that's your kind of thing. The United States, June 1994. The Dutch squad flies in for the World Cup. Mid-air, the engine cuts out. The plane makes an emergency landing. Days later, another flight. A journalist on board jokes about a bomb in his bag. He's arrested on the tarmac. 2 flights, 2 incidents, 1 tournament. Bergkamp walked off that second plane and made the decision he had been walking toward for 5 years. He was done. No more flying. Not for Inter, not for Holland, not for anyone. He was 25. In 1995, Arsenal signed him without knowing. The contract was finished. The medical was finished. Hands had been shaken. Then his agent mentioned it almost in passing to director David Dean. By the way, Dennis doesn't fly. Arsenal did not flinch. They built a system around him instead. His name was Vic Akers. Officially, he was Arsenal's kit man. For more than a decade, he was also the man who drove Dennis Bergkamp across Europe. London to Florence for a Champions League tie. The full length of Italy's Autostrada, A1. London to Paris through the Channel Tunnel. Hours and hours in a car with the most gifted footballer of his generation, so that the most gifted footballer of his generation never had to look out of a plane window. Some games were too far. Kyiv, Moscow. Bergkamp missed those nights and accepted it. But every European night that could be reached by road, he reached. 11 seasons at Arsenal, not one boarding pass. 3 Premier League titles, 4 FA Cups. The goal Arsenal supporters still call the finest in the club's history. All of it on the ground. There's a list of things this cost him. The 1998 World Cup nearly didn't happen for him at all. France was the one major tournament he could drive to, so he drove. And in the 89th minute against Argentina, the ball fell out of the sky and he turned 3 touches into something people would still be describing decades later. The 2002 World Cup was in Japan. He was not there. This is the trade laid bare. The World Cup he could drive to gave the Dutch their greatest goal. The World Cup he could not reach took him away from the national team forever. Same player, same talent. 2 different maps. After Euro 2000, Bergkamp announced he was finished with the Netherlands. 31 years old, 37 goals and 79 caps. By any honest measure, still one of the best players in the world. The next World Cup was in Japan and South Korea. He couldn't get there. Most footballers retire when the body stops answering. Bergkamp retired from his country while his body was still saying yes. Because the planet was too wide and the oceans couldn't be driven across. He didn't walk away because he had nothing left to give. He walked away because there was no road to deliver it on. And here's the part that's easy to miss. He could have forced himself. He could have taken the pills, gripped the armrest, closed his eyes and flown, the way thousands of frightened people do every single day. Plenty of people told him exactly that. He chose not to. He chose the car, the tunnel, the train, the long way round. Every single time. He built an entire career inside the borders of what he could reach without leaving the ground, and he didn't apologize for it. It was the most Bergkamp decision imaginable. Precise, deliberate, entirely under his own control. In 2014, Arsenal unveiled a bronze statue outside the Emirates Stadium. It catches Bergkamp in the air, both feet off the ground, the ball balanced against his body, gravity quietly ignored. The non-flying Dutchman, cast for all time in mid-flight. He spent his career afraid of one specific thing. The moment control leaves your hands and you're carried by something you cannot steer. He never made his peace with it. He just refused it and built everything else around the refusal. A plane he was not allowed to board. A cabin over the Alps where the softest touch in football sat shaking in the dark. A stadium in Marseille where the ball came down from 60 yards and he caught it on his foot like it weighed nothing at all. Dennis Bergkamp never trusted the sky. So he stayed on the ground and made the ground look like flight. If you want another story about where great players actually come from, there's a video on the Academy that has produced more of them than anywhere on earth. It's on screen now.